Ian Bamborough, Saturn Metals, thank you so much for coming over to Melbourne. We've got you speaking to our shareholders this afternoon at our AGM, and we're really pleased to have you with us. But what I thought we could do right now is just cut a quick video that we can tell the world about Saturn. And it's one that we feel quite special about. Saturn is Lion's largest investment. I think we've put about $12 million in, and at the moment it's worth about 40 to us. So we're doing well. But I think there's actually a mile to run on that. So, I'm bursting at the seams to talk about this. Reason we invested, when we first looked at you, you had some proto-economics out. There was a scoping study in the market. And, we worked off of that. But one of the things that we always look at is how much data is there. And one thing that struck us is a lot of money had been raised and spent on this, which meant there was a lot of drilling, there was a lot of data, there was a big resource, and there was already a bank of metallurgical test work done. So we found ourselves in a situation going, well, most of the things we would normally have to take a bit of a view on are nailed down. And it's not to say that the project is without risk, but it put us in a position to say, it's economics that we're thinking about now, not any of the physical characteristics. So we felt we were, investing for cents in the dollar. We've done well since, but I think most of that is just a bit of a gold uplift rather than actual de-risking and recognition. So, I'm thrilled with this. So tell me, Ian, though, you talk about bulk economics for Apollo Hill. What do you mean by that, particularly in the sense of mining? How do you apply bulk economics to mining gold in Western Australia?
What's different about Apollo Hill, I suppose, and you're absolutely spot on, there's a tremendous amount of drilling into that asset, and it's all confined in, one kind of central location pit. So our exploration's always been about adding ounces per cubic metre in any given pit, one big central pit. So and because it's been about that, I think we've managed to really put together a pretty big ore body, and big in the context of ounces, but also big in the context of how we can actually approach this from a bulk mining perspective. So Apollo Hill is really a big series of quartz veins, and if you try to be selective, I'm sure you could be, but it would be at a cost. Now, the beauty of Apollo Hill is you can be deselective, pretty much take all that massive gold, use much bigger selective mining units. Bigger selective mining units means bigger equipment. Bigger equipment means economies of scale. One gentleman who you're paying the wages for moving the levers in his digger, if he's moving a 60-ton bucket instead of a 10-ton bucket, he's arguably 6 times more efficient himself. Yep. So that kind of thing kicks in. And 10-metre benches instead of in Western Australia, typically we see 5-metre benches in your kind of classic Archean low gold deposits. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that when we block this thing out on a pit floor, eventually, if that's not too much of a forward-looking statement, that the geologist on the pit floor is going to be able to walk 100 metres from the edge of the ore zone to the other, instead of marking out an ore zone which could be 5 metres. And then when you blast that ore zone, you get less dilution and edge effects. So that the whole thing really works to push the cost structure down, and I suppose simplify the mining process in quite an elegant way.
Yep. You also talk about heap leaching, which people don't talk about much in Western Australia. Can you just give me a high level on why is heap leaching work so well for you, and why is that special from a cost perspective?
Apollo Hill, it starts with the gold department mineralogy. And at Apollo Hill, we have 3 million gold in all these, if you want, essentially a stockwork of quartz veins. And when we crush that rock, that gold is easily liberated. And then from a cyanide perspective, the cyanide can get in and leach it. Now, the difference for us is to get, very respectable recoveries. We can do that just by crushing the rock alone. And crushing is a form of energy use. So we get to a certain point on that crushing scale, and we've used so much energy. I think the difference between Apollo Hill and its recovery and perhaps the more typical Archean deposits is after crushing, you then have to grind the the rock down into, basically
Talcum
80,
powder.
90 micron powder. And that grinding requires another big piece of equipment, which is a big mill. And that big mill consumes a lot of energy, and that energy is pretty expensive. And again, we've brought the cost structure right down for that very respectable trade-off in recovery. And that's how it works. And if you put those bulk mining economics together with that lower cost recovery, it really leads to a very different cost structure, I suppose, for an asset, particularly a sizable one where you can see that long-term production at that big rate.
And there are so many gold projects that I can think of, and some that I've worked on, where you're mining something that's 5 metres thick, and you're constantly worrying about whether you're losing it, whether you're taking it all, whether you're diluting it inappropriately, and you go to so much effort to do that. In a mine where you have the luxury of not having to worry about any of that, and then you can process it cheaply, I can see exactly where the richness of the economics come from.
Yep.
And speaking of economics, the study which we looked at those years ago when we were first casting our mind over this and thinking about what it could be worth, I think the gold price prevailing at the time was about 1900 US. We're now at 4100 US. It's gone more than double in the time since your last set of economics came out. I think you're running up against a PFS, which isn't far away. You must be pretty excited about the kind of economics that could fall out of that. And I know you can't say until it's ready, but something directional on that.
Directional, I think. It wouldn't be wrong of us to consider the Australian spot price today, which is at least show a sensitivity scenario there where I've stopped following today, but is it 6,200 or 6,150 versus a PEA which was done at about 2,675 or something. So that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
We of course will, as we always have, as we present a very conservative case. And I'm very happy with a conservative case. So, I think that gives you some feeling. And I think also this PFS, a tremendous amount of work and detail gone into it technically. And I think just to be able to portray so much confidence in the asset and the plan and the project, I think is going to be important for us as well.
Yep. Moving away from the economics a bit, one thing which has struck me recently is the news flow coming out of Saturn has been fairly rich in, here's a high-grade hit. You've done a lot of drilling in the last 12 to 18 months. I think mostly to infill, to give yourself the confidence that you could go to reserve. But what's come of that has been these fantastic high-grade numbers. You've been working on this deposit for a while, so why are these high-grade numbers coming now? I suspect it's got something to do with the way that you understand this deposit now.
Yeah, I'm going to correct you twice here.
Go on, yeah.
High-grade and thick.
And thick.
I think is, and then I'd add on pretty near surface as well, has been fantastic and centralised in some pretty healthy pods, which I think you'll see in the resource estimation this year. You could see the pit really want to drive down on that, and I think in the PFS again, our sort of final pit design, it really stands out how much of a difference that's made. The exploration potential along strike or down dip of that is still largely untested, and we've been drilling. I think the potential in the geology for those to repeat is there. There's a pattern that's emerged. And that was my second correction. So I think you said, this is the first time we've seen that. We have seen that those type of intersections throughout the history of Apollo Hill. What's happened differently this year is as we've put and reported them, but what's happened differently this year is if we've put that infill drilling, we've been able to join the gaps between those intersections, see that pattern. That pattern unlocks, and I think it really does give myself as a geologist or our geologist a bit of a view as to where to go next, and that's what I really like about Apollo Hill's next phase, and exploration's pushing on to that effect now. We've seen a few really nice results and some very nice geology coming together to the north of Iris. And I still think it's early days for that. So, yeah.
It's amazing that you've designed a pit, you've designed how you're going to extract the gold and then process it. Yet some of these targets are right on the edge of that defined ore body. So, when you think of growth, sometimes you have to think about a new pit, which is a few kilometres away or something like that. In this case, it's like, well, maybe that just all gets bigger. So we're really excited about what that might mean for Apollo Hill. But, where you sit, you've got a very large ground holding in the Leonora area. This is giant country. What can you tell me as you step away from Apollo Hill? Is this prospective? Could it be mineralised? I think that could also be quite exciting.
I think if I take that sort of pattern recognition from the deposit and then take it out to what's 1,000 square kilometres land package, we've never stopped regionally exploring, and there's a really nice plan for the next year. To some respect, we're even resetting back and going in for what are usual pre-competitive data sets like gravity. We're going to take the whole belt and do a detailed ground gravity survey, whereas previously we've only had kind of patchworks on the areas we're working. So I think joining that architecture together across what currently is a sort of 70-kilometre long drill anomaly with 16 prospects outside Apollo Hill on it, and still 40% of what I now think are probably the best regional targets untested. I think that's going to be an exciting year in 2026 as well.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you often get to this point where you're publishing economics and things and you're just focused on delivering that project. So to think of a pipeline which has still got that potential for growth in is amazing. There's a reason why Saturn's our largest investment, and it's because we're very excited about it. When we run our sort of suite of valuations, it also sits as being probably the most discounted to our base level valuation. So I think that just speaks for how much upside there is here as the rubber hits the road and you've got the gold price behind you. So
and well funded as well.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about that. What does that mean to you?
Look, we're currently, I think, I think the number on the presentation is well north of, our last reported position, well north of 60 million. And as I sit here today, I think it's probably still well north of 60 million. So that gives us the money to finish the PFS, get right through the definitive feasibility study, maintain a very healthy growth exploration effort, be creative, and we've never been in such a well-funded position to really keep delivering. So.
Just at a time when you're hitting your straps, you feel so confident about the step-out geology and you're going through a de-risking process. So everything that adds value to a story is happening. It really bodes well for 2026 and we're so pleased to be working with you, Ian. So thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks for the support.
All the very best.
Thank you.
Good on you.